Good afternoon from Central Park, from Keskus puisto, Central Park, Helsinki. It's a very, very beautiful. This is probably going to be the nicest day in October, and then by November, forget it. Darkness sets in, and it's going to be dreary for a long time here. But today it's absolutely stunning, and we might have a few more days like this in Helsinki. I have been holding this poem back. I've been wanting to add this to the series. One reason I haven't been able to get to it is because every time I set up in this park, dogs and kids and other beings and people come around and they want to talk to me, and then they interrupt my videos. They don't know that I'm on a video. Anyway, today I think I picked the right time. I just been laying out in the sun for a little bit. I was busy all this morning at the library, and now is the perfect time to do a little Pablo Neruda. Neruda was Chilean, 20th century. He was actually born in the Mole Valley, which is one of the highest producing and lowest quality wine regions of Chile. There are some really good ones there, but like the super premium ones are in the other river valleys. But they produce a lot of wine there, and he was another disillusioned poet, or the speakers in his poems were. I think he was able to live in at least a couple different worlds, and one thing, he was a diplomat, but he was aligned with Allende, and he suddenly died of cancer in the early 70s, and I think he believed himself that it was not natural. That was the anyway. I don't want to get into politics, but he was also a huge proponent of laughter. He has one of the most, or some of the most beautiful quotes about laughter, such as that it's the language of the soul. And he said, dance your clumsy dance and sing your sorrowful song, and just sing it out to the universe. Don't worry what your inner critic says or what anyone else says. And so that's how I wanted to set up this poem, which was translated by Robert Bly, and Robert Bly got enormous joy out of reading this poem, and he often made mistakes when he read it, at least in the later years. And it didn't matter, because it kind of has that character to it. It has this leaping energy of itself, this very, very natural, fun diction. It's kind of like a violent fantasy. It's looking for connection and desire in a bankrupt world, kind of, or in a world of disillusions and despair. But we always have to be careful to recognize that the speaker in the poem is not necessarily, the first and last name poet who wrote it or published it. That it can be, one of the multitudes within you, like the painter Paul Klee said in the early 20th century in his journals. He said that myself, and he separated it out like my hyphen self. Myself is a dramatic composition, and then he lists like 8 or 9 different characters that inhabit and that can come forward at any time. And so we always have to be careful. We're not just solid blocks that can be analyzed and reduced and scrutinized. So anyway, with that, we're gonna go walking around. I love this because I am the world's #1 walking enthusiast. I'm writing a story about that. I was at the library this morning. I'm almost done with my truffle story. That's going to be probably the best thing I've ever written. Not really, but it's fun. It has a lot of joy in it. Last year this time and the year before at this time, I was in the Piemonte at the end of Nebbiolo harvest and at the beginning of Tartufo Bianco, the white truffle season. And the white truffle fair happens in October in Alba. And so I'm talking about that, and so that's what I'm thinking about, is the joy of some of the most amazing products of this world, Barolo wine and Tartufo Bianco. But anyway, that's what's been preoccupying me, because I've been writing this story for weeks, and it just keeps building, and I need to just stick the landing, as they say. But this is a joyful poem, and it has it's kind of like it is kind of like Rilke and Bly both had this notion of we live our lives in growing orbits, which move out over the things of the world. I may never achieve the last, but that will be my attempt. I'm circling around God, around the ancient tower. And I've been circling for 1,000 years. But I still don't know if I'm a falcon or a storm or a great song. So that's actually some of the same energy that you feel in this poem, this very long poem. It's amazing what Rilke could get out of a couple lines, because usually he beat the horse to death in a lot of his, especially his younger lyrics. And so we're just going to go into Neruda Walking Around. It so happens I'm sick of being a man. And it happens that I walk into tailor shops and movie houses dried up, waterproof, like a swan made of felt, steering my way in a water of wombs and ashes. The smell of barber shops makes me break out into hoarse sobs. The only thing I want is to lie still, like stones or wool. The only thing I want is to see no more stores, no gardens, no more goods, no spectacles, no elevators. It so happens I'm sick of my feet and my nails and my hair and my shadow. It so happens I am sick of being a man. Still, it would be marvelous to terrify a law clerk with a cut lily, or kill a nun with a blow on the ear. It would be great to go through the streets with a green knife, letting out yells until I died of the frost. I don't want to go on being a root in the dark, insecure, stretched out, shivering with sleep, going on down into the moist guts of the earth, taking in and thinking, eating every day. I don't want so much misery. I don't want to go on as a root in a tomb, alone under the ground, a warehouse with corpses half frozen, dying of grief, steeped itself in the forests. So one day, somewhere, anywhere, unfailingly, you'll find yourself, and that, and only that. That's why Monday, when it sees me coming with my convict face, blazes up like gasoline, and it howls on its way like a wounded wheel, and leaves tracks full of warm blood leading toward the night. And it pushes me into certain corners, into some moist houses, into hospitals where the bones fly out the window, into shoe shops that smell like vinegar, in certain streets hideous as cracks in the skin. There are sulfur-colored birds and hideous intestines hanging over the doors of houses that I hate. And there are false teeth forgotten in the coffee pot. There are mirrors that ought to have wept from shame and terror. There are umbrellas anywhere, and venoms and umbilical cords. I stroll along serenely, with my eyes, my shoes, my rage, forgetting everything. I walk by, going through office buildings and orthopedic shops and courtyards with the washing hanging from the line, underwear, towels, and shirts from which slow, dirty tears are falling. So that I feel sorry for anyone who hasn't had that poem in their mind for like decades, because it connects you with I think this underground dark duende, as they say, as some of the Spanish poets say, this force where you're always where you're feeling that, but it makes you because you can feel the joy. You can feel the joy out of the words, out of coming out these constructions of horrible things that might happen, or that that come out of your imagination, and you're walking through these scenes, and you see the same sorts of shops everywhere, and you go through. At least you didn't mention shopping malls. And it just seems like, is this all there is to life? Like, isn't there something more? Aren't we divine beings in some way? Aren't we connected to some higher spirit? Like, why do we have to be enclosed in these blocks and squares and these routines that don't serve any kind of higher purpose? And so it's an interesting idea. It would be very interesting to see what like Neruda would make of the world today with increasing technocracy, tyranny, the totalitarianism we experienced in the last few years. And there are times when you want to write a poem like that or read a poem like that because it's real. It's more real today than it was in Neruda's time, I think. That may be a controversial statement, and feel free to comment on it. But there's always something about the human spirit that you can't deny, you can't count out, and also the duality of things. When you look at everything as despair, as muck, as dirt, as slow, dirty tears, like he says at the end, that there is another side, and there is a wider perspective, and there are so many ways we can connect with the spirit, such as being out in nature on a day like today, or any day. The last several days have been a little bit dreary. We've had periods of rain almost every day. There's not been that much blue sky in quite a while, at least that I've experienced, and I'm up and about and walking around and doing stuff every day, and so I think I would know. But it's like in your personal journey, if you don't confront, I'm going to keep bringing up that metaphor. It's like if you don't confront that cave that you dare to enter, you're never going to find the treasure. And I think ultimately, people like Bly and Neruda would agree with that. It's like you have to dance with the sorrow and the death and the muck and the dirt, and really feel it deeply. Um, Otherwise, you'll never get to the joy and the true wider perspective of whatever this plane is and the mysteries. And I think in our modern era, we try to deny ourselves the great mysteries, and we let cynicism and short-sightedness and too much rational thinking. Like when he's talking about walking through these towns where like the same sorts of scenes and businesses and these. I walked through Merihaka yesterday. Merihaka was this development. Was it the 60s or 70s? It's in a lovely place. It's close to downtown. It's close to the Esplanade Park where I was yesterday. I mean, close for if you're a good walker, it's not a problem. But it's these kind of bleak, gray, concrete towers, and there's this little forest of towers. I guess I think they're about 18 stories high or something like that, and they're kind of like some dreary little businesses, some kind of sad bars like you might find in an Aki Kaurismäki movie, and it's just like you usually, it actually also reminds me of Kieslowski in his great work where he reimagines the Ten Commandments, or uses that as a starting point to tell these very imaginative stories, but set in a dreary, apartment block in Poland. And Merihaka is a lot nicer. There's actually like tiny little details and splashes of color that make it a little bit happier. And I had a great aunt who lived there, and I thought it was a great place. Like she had a balcony; she could look out to the sea. She walked down to the open air market well into her 70s, and it wasn't. I don't think it was too bad, but in the context of a city that's known for its architecture and its various of styles, I mean, it's not like the whimsical Katayonaka, the Art Nouveau or Jugend style. It's a little bit more brutalist, but still, we can start with that material, and we can say what the worst case scenario is and catastrophize things, but that's another way to find the spirit of the divine and the greater consciousness that we're all hopefully seeking, especially in these troubled times. So those are a few rambling thoughts. I hope some of it made sense. I was thinking about doing another take, but I think I'm just going to leave that there because I like some of how I did the poem, but I feel like I did almost like Robert often did with this poem. Is he kind of lost the track, and I think he had to like look closely at the lines, even though he was the translator, and he took some liberties because he was trying to state it in kind of like a different cultural context. I mean, thankfully it was the same historical period. He often worked with poets that were like hundreds of years in the past in faraway cultures, but with Neruda it was a little bit closer because they were somewhat contemporaries, and the cultures were vastly different. So that's where we're going to end today. I hope I gave you a couple things to think about, and I like the rough, kind of like the rough texture of these videos, because I'm not trying to perfect it. I'm not going to do another take on this one, and I think I think that goes with the spirit of the poem. Like it's okay to lose the track a little bit and just have fun with it. As Neruda would say, you have to dance your ugly dance sometimes, and and just laugh about it. So that's what I'm going to do today. I have a lot more work to do. Every day I keep saying I'm going to finish my truffle article, and then I remember something else that I want to add to it, and then I realize it's going to get so long that I'm going to have to chop it into like 3 different parts. But we'll just see. We'll just see what happens. And I wish you a very pleasant day wherever you are. And thank you so much. And we'll see you further on down the trail. Bye for now.